Welcome to the KayaCast, the podcast for cannabis businesses looking to launch, grow, and scale their operations.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. This is part two of our conversation with Ernest. If you haven't heard part one, highly recommend you listen to that last week's episode. We talk about Ernest's journey from MJ BizCon to starting BIPOCann, a consulting business that helps social equity applicants. During the pandemic, his struggles starting his own business. I'm sure that we can all relate to that being entrepreneurs, as well as his work with the Colorado Social Equity Program, and the struggles that he sees entrepreneurs make, the common mistakes that entrepreneurs make when starting their business, when opening up their doors. In today's episode, we talk about raising money. It's never fun to raise money. It's a grind. Nobody likes it, but there's a science to this. So Ernest goes through what should be in a pitch deck, as well as why concise is better than anything. You have to be concise in the pitch. And not only is you got to really think about it from the lens of an investor. They see thousands of pitch decks all the time. They don't have the time really to go through a 40-page deck. But it also helps you understand your business so much more because you can cut through the noise and just present what's the most important, why you matter, why you exist. So we talk about that as well. I hope you guys enjoy. So if I was a business today, a brand, cultivation, retail, etc., and I'm looking to raise money, how should I approach? What should my approach be before talking to investors? What do I need to have ready?
I mean, you should have, I think it's important to have a deck of some sort, and I don't think, and I've had people come to me and I've seen so many different like pitch decks in the past couple of years, but one of the things that I notice that's pretty common is people put too much information. It's like too wordy. And usually it's too lengthy. Like there was one group that I was meeting with about a year ago, and they showed me their deck, and it was something like 80 pages long. And I was like, no one's going to read that, you know? And then there was another group that I worked with that gave me like a 25-page deck, and I said the same thing, like, no one's going to read it. And at the end of the day, like, I really think that you can create like a pretty solid starter deck with like 8 to 10 pages, but it really requires you to, simple is hard. Being simple is hard. Like you're excited about your ideas and, maybe you've had some successes and traction. So you're like, what is it that I can convey? But I think that I see if you're a new brand, you need to clearly articulate like what is like the problem that you're solving within the market. You need to showcase like why you're the solution. You need to maybe talk a little bit about your traction and some of the successes that have happened so far. You should list your, a little bit of information about the competitive landscape. Basically, like why should someone choose to work with you, and show that you understand like where you fit in the market. You should show your team, like who's involved, that's going to actually help you bring this idea to the table. You should show some financial projections, basically like where are you? Like what are some successes that you've had right now? And if you haven't brought in revenue, like you should at least, whether, and regardless of whether you've made revenue or not, you should show your projections and how you're going to use those funds. And I think that, it needs to be professional. Like, I think a lot of times, a good presentation and good delivery and story can do a lot. I think also, it's like I think I think a lot of brands, a lot of business owners could benefit by like going through coursework like that. And it's like, it's tough, right? Because you have this idea and maybe the state's saying, all right, you have a threshold where you have to come up with funds to show that, you can continue to keep doing business and you're panicking for all the different reasons. But, if you really are trying to raise some dollars, and I'm not even saying like that it needs to be an investor deck, like maybe you are trying to find people from the community to sponsor you or to um, or or just to be backers. Like you need to have basic elements that can communicate like the value and why it's a no-brainer for those companies or those individuals to work with you.
I think even if you're not raising money and you're first starting out, that investor deck is going to give you such a clear, concise way to communicate your business. If you look at an investor deck, it includes all of the major elements that you should really have a clear understanding of, right? We have your position in the industry, why you guys are unique, why you guys are different, right? Why you guys are unique, how big the market is, what is the potential, how much money you need, what are you going to use it for?
Yeah.
Pretty basic stuff that you have to have an understanding of. And the act of doing it in an investor deck, like you said, and having it super concise is such a neat way to really understand your business better too.
Yeah, it really is. Really is. I agree. I mean, I think everybody should do that exercise. And I told you, like when I got my business started, I did that whole lean canvas exercise, and that's actually something like when I did my first mentorship programs like 3 years ago. We took all of the participants through a similar workshop, and like I workshopped the exact same thing. I was like, look, this isn't just something that I pulled from an online search. It's like I did this like for my business, and here's the successes that we've had because that tool gave me a lot of clarity. And I held on to that canvas. I still have that first canvas, and I can look back and be like, oh man, some of these assumptions are great, and some of these things are like so off that it's like laughable now. But I did the exercise, right? And it's the same thing with the deck. Like it's sort of like building a resume, right? Like the first time you do it, it's probably not going to be that great, but eventually you get better and better and better, and you understand the story and the narrative, and and then if somebody asks you about to tell like to interview you, right? You can answer it because you know it, you practice it, you same thing, right?
I want to go through an example actually of this because I feel like when I'm listening to a concept, it's just easier for me to attach it to a story or attach it to an example. It just helps a lot. Let's say that I have a business idea, Ernest, and my business idea is, hey, you know what? We're gonna start a dispensary, but what we're really gonna focus on is this demographic. Maybe it's women in that are 30 to 60, whatever. And we're now what we want to do is we want to focus on, instead of recreational users, more health. So in the cannabis space, you have recreational, you have medicinal, and health for me is an emerging. It's not there yet, but you have all these cannabinoids that really help you sleep, gut, think, all of these things, right? That is useful to the average person that just doesn't want to get stoned every day. Mm-hmm. And I know that these people live in these pockets of town, and the industry in itself is $70 billion. How should I position that story in a deck that resonates with potential investors?
Yeah. So I think you like outlined like the need. You identified that there's a market, there's potential, maybe there's interest. Um, I would I would also like focus on competition. Are there any? Is there like what are some of the alternatives? Okay, well, where are the other places that women at this age group are seeking health benefits, and it might not even be cannabis related at all. It could be yoga, it could be health food stores, it could be gyms, it could be things like that. So you start listing about like what are all the different you know complementary or competing providers of health-based health and wellness services that appeal to this demographic. You might even want to take a look at some of those and figure out like what their spend looks like. So you can say this is comparable. It's like, okay, well, I see that, like these studios, centers, and or this like facility is generating, X million dollars a year. And, our business is going to be in a similar location with similar foot traffic. And, like we think that we can capture a percentage of this market. So I think do your due diligence to learn about the market, because you can niche down even more to figure out like why this is a no-brainer for someone to invest in you. I also think like if there's a good story that you can tell with that, so maybe there's part of your ownership or leadership team that is that target demographic, or you have people that have experience like selling and working with that demographic, then that's going to build confidence, in the investor because you can say, I am this demographic, I work with this demographic, I've sold to this demographic. I think the other thing is being able to show that you have like a revenue model that's actually realistic, that is going to help you hit some of the benchmarks. And you need to figure out like a marketing strategy that's going to help you get there too. So like, I think, maybe you have like a unique way. Maybe you decide that like there's some type of app that you're going to use to, maybe you already have some traction. Maybe like somebody on your team has created like a group or a newsletter or blog or an app that already has interest here, and you've surveyed people and you figured out that if this was an option that was available, then 50-70% of the people they would buy.
Kind of like how do you de-risk that investment?
Yeah. That's really what it's getting at. You're trying to, and you don't want to BS any of this stuff. It's like you actually want to do the work, and because honestly, like the worst, I mean, let's say you are lucky enough to get the investment, and then, like if you're making up a lot of this stuff and then these folks are like, okay, well, you said that you have all of these things that, now you're going to be on the hook to try to.
Then also to your point, I think it's good. This could be a really good vehicle for you to assess viability as well. Like you're going through that motion, and this is just a good exercise altogether.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that you could do is like, let's say you're in a market that does have a dispensary, and maybe one of the things that maybe one of your ways to do the market research is like you've already gone in and offered some type of program or partner with some retailers, and you realize that there is a demand, and these customers said that if I had a place that specifically like met me here and was health focused, then I would show up. But you have to again look at everything in the supply chain, look at the market, figure out like that you have a business model that's going to work. So
Ernest, a lot of people get really dejected when they're raising capital. Raising capital is not a fun exercise. It's not a fun exercise. And I always ask, okay, how many investors have you talked to? How many events have you gone? And it's never enough. Can you speak a little bit to how much volume you need, how many conversations you need to have in order to really raise money?
Yeah, I mean, well, okay, so I know it's a lot, right? And I can tell you that, and I'm not even sure if I'm really like the best like use case, or sorry, the best person to answer this question, just because we bootstrapped our business, and I would say like, so we haven't had like that investor backing like from like a VC where we've gone through a raise, but I've gone through like I have been in front of investors, and I've talked to dozens and dozens, and I have received feedback and say, we think that this is the thing that looks good, but you should improve here. At some point, I made a decision that, after probably like right around like year 3, that I wasn't going to actively pursue investment for the near future. And part of that is because like the revenue model that I created was working, and much of the relationships and much of the drivers of my business are also coming from state-based contracts. So, but like the thing is, like you still have to go through that process. Whenever I've had to get a customer, to become a member or a client, whenever I've worked with, large brands to get them to sponsor programs, companies like Wild and Wana, it's like you have to go through the process of, creating a presentation, understanding what their goals are, figuring out that alignment, and then delivering on the promise that you say that you're going to do. And if you do that well, like they see impact and they want to keep working with you. And the next time you ask for, sponsorship, you might be better positioned to get more. And same thing works with the government contracts. But either way, it's I would expect that if somebody is actively going through like the investor in the fundraise process, like yeah, I mean you'll have the fluke, you have the fluke home run where somebody will, you know, within the first like couple of meetings they have their funds, but a lot of people that I've talked to have said that they've talked to hundreds of investors, and it can probably be like a volume and a numbers game, but
It's a process for sure. And the first time you do your presentation will be vastly different than the 100th time you do your presentation. You'll be a different person.
yeah, yeah. I will say that one of the things that we build like a good relationship with you know with several investors, and that's been great because of being able to pick their brains and also have them in the rooms, or even involved like with some of the programs that are run, so that they can build relationships directly with folks that we touch. So.
Awesome. Ernest, is there anything that we haven't spoke about that you feel that entrepreneurs should know?
I'm sure there's a lot more.
That's a loaded question, right? It's a million things.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Well,
I
we
think
definitely have to have you back on board, back too.
yeah, this was so fun, and like thank you so much for the invite, and also just the time like talking about this. I feel like I talked a little bit about like the start, my journey like from going to MJ Biz to starting BIPOCann, and then even seeing like the shift in like where my attention is going with our efforts, and it is leaning even more into helping more like entrepreneurship coaching and trying to help the businesses navigate these early stage challenges. And I don't know, I found a lot of excitement out of that, and it's also pretty cool to see like some of the folks that I've worked with be in positions where they have gone from an idea to pre-revenue to making millions of dollars in revenue each year. It's like really cool to be a part of that process. So I think the last thing I'd say is just I think it's important to also make sure that the thoughts that you're consuming are healthy ones, right? So when things go bad, and they will go bad as an entrepreneur, that negative self-talk can be a killer for you. So I've found it really helpful to, and I've seen the people who've been very successful be the folks that subscribe to podcasts, or they're reading like business books or reading entrepreneurship books. It's like, even though you are starting a business in cannabis, you also should remember that you're also like an entrepreneur. So learn how to be that as well. So as much as you're going to research on the industry, like research like the art of business and entrepreneurship. And that's the last, tip.
Oh, I love that advice, because the cannabis industry is so young.
Mhm.
We have a lot to learn on the outside. Like restaurant industry been around forever. There's so many other industries that have solved the problem that you're looking to solve. Let's not recreate the wheel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. There's like a lot of, there's a lot of, a lot of other industries and, business models that you can reference, but yeah. And, I think we're going through a little bit of a rough patch in the industry over the past couple of years, but I also want to remind people that it's still very young, and there's so much room for innovation. Like I said, I mentioned several times I'm in Colorado, and, we've started having like adult use sales in 2012. Like that wasn't even, you know, barely a teenager. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we we're just at the beginning of what this industry is going to do. So, you know, be in it for the long haul.
Ernest, before I let you go, how can our listeners find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Ernest L Tony, or just search Ernest Tony. You'll find me. You can also visit my website, BIPOCann, BIPOCANN.com. And those are two great ways to connect with me. We will be having like a sort of like a spin-off that's coming in the upcoming months. So we have like a new LLC that's going to be really just focusing on like the entrepreneurship side of things. So,
What? You got to come back. Let's talk about that.
we're gonna broaden our reach, because like a lot of the concepts that we talked about and the advice and successes that we've had, I think there's a lot of folks that can benefit from it in the industry. So that goes for service providers as well. I know so much of our focus has been on the licensees, but yeah, we're gonna be launching something new by the beginning of the year. So.
Love it. We'll have you back so you can talk about that. Guys, if you are looking to jumpstart where you're at, definitely reach out to Ernest. I'm sure that you guys are just connect, right?
Yeah.
Like just connect. You never know where it goes. Ernest, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hey, thanks, Tommy. Appreciate it, man. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the KayaCast podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast in your favorite podcast app, or visit our website to access the full archive of episodes from the show.